After showcasing several aspects of different levels from across the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, there's one category that I've yet to discuss that I feel like would make an interesting, yet somewhat controversial video, in focusing on the ones that take place underwater. Here I'll specifically look at the absolute best in each and every game in the series, which is a strange thing to say, as I know many of you think that not one at all exists, and that all are bad, but I still think it could be pretty cool to find the diamonds in the rough. Just as a note, a few of these might just be classified as water levels and not necessarily underwater ones, as you might not swim beneath the surface of a few, but I still felt like they should be included, so I'll make note of them when we get to those. Oh yeah, before I get started, my name is Copycat, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel, hitting that bell button to stay notified when I upload new videos. Super Mario Bros. For the NES is the very first game to be released in the series, where I'd have to say that the best underwater level from it is World 7-2. Now this isn't saying too much about this particular stage's quality, as there were only 2 to choose from this entry, with this one being the better version due to the larger amount of enemies to face off against. Okay, I do get that adding more annoying enemies isn't necessarily something that most would consider good, but with no other options, this is definitely the best pick. In the Western version of Super Mario Bros. 2, there are no moments from it where you swim underwater, so instead I went with World 3-1, as it's centered around an enormous waterfall. Here you can either use the cloud-based platforms to scale up towards the sky until you reach the level's end, or you can fall down the waterfall, discovering at its bottom a secret house where collecting the magic potion and going down the jar in its subspace will take you to World 5. Again, I get that at no point you even interact with water, and something like World 4-2 would have been a better choice due to the platforms that spray out of the whale's blowholes, but just discovering the secret in this void where you'd expect to die is such an amazing experience. The final entry in the original trilogy, Super Mario Bros. 3, has one specific level I want to talk about, starting with the second fortress from World 3. This stage's inclusion is mainly due to the fact that it's home to the weird but amazing ghost-based stretch enemies, which are just boos who have been infused in a platform, popping up from time to time to travel along it and try and damage you. Even though this is an amazing thing to come across, the stage itself is not difficult at all to complete, so other than this foe, there isn't really much to praise about it. The true Japanese sequel, only released in Western markets in the Super Mario All-Stars collection, is the Lost Levels, where without a doubt the best swimming stages from it are the ones found in World 9. This place is also known as Fantasy World, probably because it oddly blends underwater and above ground elements together, as can be seen with the enemies and settings of these weird places. I get that this is a bit gimmicky, but in a world where most people despise water-based levels, ones that deviate from the norm are a breath of fresh air. The very first handheld game in the franchise is Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, which only has one underwater level that I'd also consider its best in World 2-3. This is because throughout its entirety, you're maneuvering through it in a submarine, where you can actually shoot projectiles at enemies and objects in your way. At its end, you have to battle the seahorse-looking Dragon Zamzu boss, who shoots endless fireballs towards you in a confined space, who's also protected by the ball of energy called the Tamao. What's sort of strange about this one is that you can actually bypass the fight altogether and just trigger the switch behind the boss to defeat it, which sort of sucks as it is a bit of a cop-out, but it doesn't mean it's not fun. Next up is Super Mario World for the SNES, which actually has a handful of great underwater stages, starting with Soda Lake. This is the one place in the game that stars the Torpedo Teds, which are bullet bill-like enemies that are released in the water out of their bases by a small hand that randomly resembles Mickey Mouse's. These Teds move relatively quickly, but just in a straight line, so you just have to be a bit patient when swimming around them. Another level I have to mention for its uniqueness is the Sunken Ghost Ship, that acts sort of like the entrance to the Valley of the Bowser. This underwater ghost house contains the massive disappearing Boo Buddy Swarm, that are almost impossible to maneuver through properly, as it's hard to predict when they're going to reappear. The second part of this level is equally incredible, as you fall down an enormous pit and have to collect what you can, while also avoiding the other enemies falling with you. The final level I want to mention, that doesn't involve any swimming but I still want to show it off, is the Vanilla Secret 3. This is due to the fact that your main means of platforming is via dolphin, some of which move horizontally and jump forward, and some of which that just move vertically, jumping upwards. The second entry of the Super Mario Land series came out for the Game Boy in 1992, where I'd have to say that its best underwater level is the second one from the Turtle Zone. This takes place within a sunken, abandoned submarine, where you need to navigate between going in and out of water, traveling through sections of it like a maze towards the goal. This isn't necessarily the hardest stage in the game, as there aren't too many enemies that get in your way, but it's still at least a different kind of experience in a rather rudimentary title. Out of the 3 main water-based levels in Super Mario 64, I'd have to say that the best underwater one is Wet Dry World, as it focuses on going in and out of the water to trigger switches that change its levels. This is used to solve different puzzles to gain stars, with some of my favorite being having to navigate the arrow lifts, finding the 5 secret trigger spots throughout the course, figuring out how to use the elevator shaft properly, and getting to the secret town area to collect the 8 red coins. I just feel like this is a way better experience than either Jolly Roger Bay or Dire Docks, as both seem a bit uninspired, lacking any fun characteristics. Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube is a standout game as it's almost entirely water-based, from the levels you have to explore, down to the flood that you need to use to move around and fight enemies, where I'd have to say the best one from it is definitely Noki Bay. That's because this level does a great job at switching between having to collect fantastic above ground and underwater shine sprites, with a few notable situations including the uncorking of the waterfall, collecting the red coins in the water-filled bottle, the race against Il Piantissimo, navigating the incredibly tricky runes to fight the bloober at the end, battling the eel while cleaning its teeth in an underwater cavern, and getting all of the red coins found within the coin fish. This may not be the best course overall in the entire game, but it is the one that perfectly blends all the elements of it into one great location. Next up is Nintendo's 2D reimagining of the series in New Super Mario Bros. For the DS, which has 2 World 8 underwater levels I want to talk about, starting with its second. This is an underground swimming stage where you can trigger a series of switches to change the water's levels, revealing platforms that you can jump on to get certain secrets. Again, like Wet Dry World, I enjoy levels that have a different type of mechanic other than the regular old swim around and avoid enemies. The other stage from World 8 that I have to include is its third one, which features the Unagi eel bad guys, including the gigantic mega one that you have to swim away from for most of the stage. This is absolutely huge and takes up a large portion of your screen, and on top of that is indestructible, where even a Mega Mushroom doesn't affect it. Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii actually has a lot of water-based galaxies, but pretty obvious ones that I enjoyed a lot were the Loop-de-Loop and Loop-de-Swoop galaxies. Both of these require you to surf on top of a ray, using the Wiimote's motion controls to guide both it and Mario through the course, which is tons of fun once you get used to it. I have seen some mixed feelings about this specific mechanic online, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are about it in the comments below. One more normal base stage I want to mention as good is the Beach Bowl Galaxy, that's broken up into different planets that all contain some sort of water-based feature. There's the Heavenly Beach planet that's home to several penguins that you can swim around with. There's the Cyclone Stone planet that's a really tough platforming-based obstacle with strong water current in the middle that you can fall into. And there's the Twin Falls planet, where you need to use the ice flowers so that you're able to create a solid platform to wall jump up. I saw a whole bunch of other lists that had Deep Dark, Big Mouth, and even Bonefin Galaxy ahead of this one, but after going over all of them in detail, I think it's safe to say that the wide variety found within this one makes it the best. The second installment in the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the Wii in 2009, and actually has 3 water levels we're going to look at, starting with World 6-3. This is another one that involves using switches to change the water's levels, and contains many hungry-looking piranha plants, some of which are very large and their mouth can be hard to dodge. World 6-6 is the second level that I really enjoyed, which involves having to navigate through a dark, watery cave on top a raft, using the motion controls on your Wiimote to use the light and illuminate unlit areas. This one's not really difficult at all, but you're guaranteed to have trouble getting every star coin, especially on your first go. The third and final one from this entry that can be considered good is World 8-4. Again, taking place in a dark underwater cavern where you need to use any light source you can to progress forward. This here really only comes from either the Jelly Beam Jellyfish enemies or the Glow Block item, or if you have a Fire Flower, but otherwise you're pretty much going in blind. The second of the Super Mario Galaxy series came out for the Wii in 2010, where I feel like many people would agree that the Cosmic Cove Galaxy is the best water-based one from this title. Some of my absolute favorite moments from it include having to freeze the entire galaxy so you can platform up its waterfall, chasing the Star Bunny on the water-covered skate hole planet, traversing through the 2D side-scrolling oriented aquarium planets, and finally using the spin drill on the Drill Water Spring planet to unleash the water within and uncover the star. The only galaxy that even came close to this one is Starshine Beach, but its focus is more on above ground platforming, which is really what holds it back from making the top spot in this video. Super Mario 3D Land for the 3DS only has one single underwater level that's worth mentioning at all in World 7-1, which is somewhat similar to World 3-2, but contains way more enemies for you to come across. One of these is obviously the spiked eels, which can only be repelled with certain power-ups to uncover the secrets hidden within their dwellings. Now, this is not the hardest stage in the series, as this game is pretty limited in terms of grandness, but it was at least a great jumping off point for what we see in games released after it. The third entry in the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series, oddly given the moniker of being the second game for some reason, has a couple levels I think would be great to look at, starting with World 3A. Here you need to swim your way through several areas that are completely infested with urchins, and overrun by several Cheep Cheeps, while having to deal with the extremely strong current that pushes you quickly through the level. I like this unique concept that's actually pretty tough, especially in a title that's generally considered easier by most fans. World 3B is the other level from this game I want to look at, which features you needing to use the mini mushroom power down so you can literally walk on water and make it to the end of the stage. This is made pretty difficult due to the auto-scrolling found throughout it, meaning you need to be pretty careful when trying to move around the Koopas, Cheep Cheeps, Bullet Bills, and mini spiked obstacles. The final installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the Wii U in 2012, and has some great underwater-based levels, but in my opinion the best is Dragon Eel's Undersea Grotto, that's found in the Sparkling Waters area. Like its name lays out, this one contains the outstanding Dragon Eel enemy that swims in and out of the screen, at times circling around Mario, acting as an obstacle that you have to avoid. This is pretty easy, as you just have to be patient while this foe takes out the majority of your screen. And I love levels that contain enemies that make your experience way more interesting. Another level from this game I want to mention is Superstar Road's Swim for Your Life, where you need to quickly escape a ravaging Cheep Chomp that will stop at nothing to eat Mario. Here you also have to deal with a plethora of other enemies, like the prickly urchins, or annoyingly placed Cheep Cheeps, making your traversal through this stage very tedious. The only other level I want to mention is Soda Jungle's Deep Sea Runes, which strangely blends Ghost House elements with underwater cave exploring. Here you'll find very cool situations, like jumping on the statues while avoiding the circling boos, swimming through the darkness only being able to use the jelly beams as light, and swimming up the long shaft while avoiding the baddies, all of which are a lot of fun. Nintendo will release an extra game mode for New Super Mario Bros. U, titled New Super Luigi U, which contains similar but much harder versions of the game's levels, one of which I think is good in the Sparkling Waters 4, The Great Geysers. In this stage, large platforms of water shoot out from the bottom of the screen, where after a little bit they retract for a short period of time before going back up again. Dodging the large amount of Cheep Cheeps, Koopas, and River Piranha plants is really your main mission here, and trust me when I say you won't get out of this one unscathed. Nintendo would extend the Super Mario 3D series with its world entry for the Wii U, which has many levels that have fun water-based features, starting with World Bowser's 5 Deep Water Dungeon. This one's very unique as it contains literal moving bodies of water, adding a whole nother element to your platforming. This stage is then capped off by the Plessy riding section towards the goal, which in this case is unfortunately very short, but they're still a fun experience when they do show up. Next, I want to look at both the Sunshine Seaside and its harder Towering Sunshine Seaside level, both set upon a beautiful beach with water surrounding the stage. This is pretty open, but contains some very cool things like the Goomba mask that turns those type of foes into your friends, using the baseball to attack enemies, or riding Plessy to the finish line, where you need to stay on course and navigate through a thin path. Also, the World Flower version contains Goomba towers that hilariously can be killed using cannon blocks, although you don't have much time, so you have to collect stopwatches if you want to find everything. The final one from this entry that I'm going to showcase is Plessy's Plunging Falls, which in my opinion is the best water-based one that features Mario's Dino Buddy. Here you have to navigate through a river at the bottom of a canyon, collecting as much as you can on your run, finding secrets by bonking off enemies, and jumping up to higher falls. These levels are pretty simplistic, but are a good palate cleanser at changing things up from the normal platforming. The final title we're going to look at in this video is the massive Super Mario Odyssey entry for the Switch. That's best water-based level hands down as the Seaside Kingdom, located on a pristine beach right next to the ocean. This one really is one of the best done levels in the entire Mario series, as being able to capture and become a Cheep Cheep really changes the usual swimming mechanics that people have begun to loathe. Some of the best moves that you can collect include the volleyball ones, the 2D ocean bottom maze, the fight against the gigantic mollusk lancer octopus boss, getting into the giant jar, and so much more. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. As you notice, I left Bowser's Fury out, as there aren't technically any water levels in it, as it is entirely Lake Lapcat, which is surrounded by water, so I really couldn't include it as it would just include the entire game, so yeah, that's my reasoning. If you guys like this video, please leave a like, comment below what you thought about it, subscribe to my channel, and please go follow my Instagram at CopyCatGamer. There I upload some cool clips and items from my collection that you won't see anywhere else. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!